Okay, hey everyone, good morning. We are recording now, so we'll get started. First of all, welcome to today's session. Today's workshop is probably one of my favorites. It's a very interesting workshop, and it's honestly something that I've been studying in great detail, for a very long time, even before I got into this as a full time profession. So it's something I'm very interested in, and I think a lot of what has helped me as a trainer when I'm working with dogs is this subject, right? Because training is only the last 20%. Training or whatever work we do with the dogs and their pet parents. The remaining 80% is actually listening to the dog and trying to understand what they're trying to speak, right? And I think with this skill I've really been able to help more people. And I think the crux of whatever it is I do, even when I go to work with a pet parent, is help them understand the same. Yeah, so I think it's something that everyone should learn about. Everyone who is having a dog, or who's ever had a dog, or who's planning to get a dog, or even someone who works with dogs. So today's workshop is on decoding your dog. It is a guide to understanding your dog's body language. So a dog's communication is definitely quite vast, but in this workshop we're going to stick to body language, right? Because I think it is the most important and the most obvious for us to learn and understand. Before we get started, again, we have one participant here today and a lot more who wanted the recording later, because I think today we've got a festival here. So, Swayambhu, you introduced yourself many times, but for people who don't know, who are watching this for the first time, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm a pet parent. I have dogs. I just lost one, and I have cats too. I'm a rescuer and a feeder, so I want to get it from the dog behaviorist point. I feel we have a different perspective. That's why I'm religiously attending these sessions because we could be wrong or maybe we can learn more. It's always better to get lot of perspective, like I always discuss with vets also and other fellow rescuers, because animal welfare or being a pet parent is always, because the animals can't talk. I feel it's better to take from somebody else's experience too. Yeah. Thank you,
Yeah,
Karthik, for
no
the mic.
problem. Oh, no, absolutely. And again, for everyone who's watching, Swayambhu is a very active rescuer and feeder. She's also an artist, and she does beautiful works of art. We actually purchased one just recently, and all of the proceeds actually go to funding animal rescues and a lot of other projects that she's doing. So for any of you who's watching this who want to support, then you can drop a message to Swayambhu. We will put the details in the description of this video. And yes, what she said is very true. I think the exchange of information and knowledge is really important. Perspectives vary greatly, and there's never a time when you learn everything about these animals or dogs specifically, right? So the moment you say you've learned everything is the day everything's gonna go off, right? So the learning is never ending, and of course the best teachers are the dogs. And a lot of what you will see in this workshop is based on years and years of observation, right? So there's a lot of science to it, but there's also a little bit of an art, right? We always say dog training is more of an art than a science, because you can learn all the theory in the books, but right there standing in front of you there may be a dog whose personality goes against everything that you've learned, right? So you need to be able to observe, be in the moment, and kind of feel what's happening. And that's something we will discuss more in today's workshop. So Swayambhu, can we get started? Okay.
Sure, and thank you so much for telling about my artwork.
Yeah, no, I
For
think
purchasing also, that's a great moral support and a booster for me. Thanks a lot.
no, I think she's very modest and a lot of good work. Not many people who will sacrifice and put so much on the line to give their best to the dog. So please do support her. If anyone's watching, it will go to the best for these beautiful animals. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, now, uh, usually we always start our workshops with a why, because only then can we really understand why, the uh, reason behind all the topics that we discuss. Now, why is body language important? Dogs basically have three modes of communication. Yeah, they have tone of voice. They use their voice a lot to communicate, which is the most obvious. Even when I go to schools to conduct therapy sessions for kids, when I ask them what language does a dog speak, then everyone will say bow bow bow, right? So that's the most obvious, and that's what we're trained to know about dogs. So we say dog barks, and that's usually what most people think dogs communicate with. So that's voice, uh, tone of voice more specifically. Secondly, body language, of course. More than 90 to 95% of a dog's communication is body language, right? And so much of this gets missed. It's not just about the wagging tail, or maybe, a tucked in tail, or a dog, shaking or shivering. There's so much more to it, right? So there are a lot of subtleties that we need to know about. So more than 90 to 95% of canine communication is through their body language. So you can understand how important this is for them. Um, the third form of communication in dogs, and it's something that they will understand, is emotion. Right? Over generations, dogs have learned to comprehend our emotion to a great extent. Today with pet dogs, most people will see this. They can understand when you're upset. They can understand when you're angry. They can understand when you're happy. They can just sense it, right? So emotion is also a very powerful tool in training a dog, or even communicating to a dog. And dogs also reciprocate emotion, right? So it's something that we use a lot, especially in companion dog training, right? Unlike, let's say, a working dog that's being bred and trained for a very specific task, a companion dog is required to be around people in a family setting, in an urban setting, right? So understanding emotion becomes of prime importance. So we do a lot of that when we work with pet dogs, right? So these are the three forms of communication, and in this workshop, we're going to be talking about body language. Now, before we can start talking to dogs with our body language, we need to be able to listen to what they're trying to say, right? And with body language, as obvious as it is, the listening is about observation. We need to be able to see what they're trying to communicate. We need to read between the lines. Our brain has been conditioned to only look at very specific things, right? We look for events. We want the dog, when the dog wags their tail, we'll see it. Then when the dog probably does something exaggerated like jumping on us, we see it. But we don't see what's happening in between. So this reading between the lines skill becomes very, very important when you're working with a dog, or even trying to understand your own dog, right? So we have to learn their languages, and a lot of it is hidden between the lines. Third, it does help to build a stronger bond, right? 90%, I can confidently say that more than 90% of behavior issues that people face today is because of a lack of understanding, right? So the root, although a lot of people are hesitant to do this, they feel like it's additional work, or they feel like, the trainer, let him just come and do the training for me. You need to understand most of it is about understanding where your dog's coming from, right? That is going to help you build a strong bond, and most of your training and behavior related problems totally vanish, right? Because most of the time, if you really look at it, as pet parents, we are not unwilling to give our dog privileges and things that they want. The problem that we have is the way in which they ask for these things, right? So we don't mind giving our dog a treat, but let's say our dog is demanding for a treat, it annoys us, right? We don't mind taking our dog out if they really want to pee, but if we're not able to understand how the dog's communicating it, then we get frustrated, right? So a lot of it is about understanding. Another important point about body language, um, when a dog is stressed, anxious, or afraid, a lot of their communication is through body language, right? If you visit a veterinary clinic, or let's say you visit maybe some animal shelters, or you just see a dog that's come back from some kind of trauma, you will see them constantly give these stress signals, right? The dog's constantly trying to express that I'm stressed out, I'm stressed out, I'm stressed out. And it's not until the 100th or 1000th signal that the dog actually starts behaving aggressively. So if you see dogs that are having issues with handling at a vet clinic or a groomer, you can be sure that before they actually learn to bite or become aggressive on the veterinary table, they've been giving a lot of signs. And of course, our eyes aren't trained to see these signs, so we ignore and just keep moving ahead. But if we actually observed these signs and took a few necessary measures, you could have prevented aggression from even starting, right? So identifying stress signals really important. Can also help us understand when your dog's in discomfort. People say, I don't know when my dog has fallen sick. My dog's usually very active, very hyperactive all the time. He has such a high appetite. Even if he's had a bad stomach, he starts to, eat whatever the food. Some dogs are smart eaters, right? But some dogs just eat. So in situations like this, it helps to understand the dog's body language, because you'll be able to kind of gauge if they're a little off or they're giving you more of these stress signals. And finally, body language is important to give a safe and happy environment to your dog. Ultimately, what we want with our dogs is a state of no conflict, as we've discussed in the previous workshops. A state of no conflict where what you want for the dog, what you want is what the dog wants, and what the dog wants is what you want. That is the epitome of a human dog relationship, right? To be able to get to that, body language is absolutely crucial. All right. So that is why body language is so important. Okay. Now let's start with the basics of body language. The three most obvious, right? You have the ears, you have the eyes, and the tail. Swayambhu, there are three pictures over there on the screen. Can you tell me a little bit about what you think about each of those dogs based off of, what they're saying with the ears, eyes, and tail? I think you're on mute.
If I'm not wrong, the first one is friendly. He's waiting for a treat.
Nice. Okay, that's good. That's a good interpretation. Correct.
Second one is he's a bit stressed. He's sensing some signal, like when a rescuer goes or when a vet approaches.
Mm,
That's the expression, like,
nice,
teeth
nice,
is
excellent.
showing, the teeth is giving signals that he is not comfortable with something.
Fantastic, fantastic.
Third one is curious. This guy is
Wow.
looking, he is looking at some cat or any other animal there.
Very nice. Good. So actually you gauged all of them right. Okay, and I'll tell you where people usually get confused, especially with the third one. Tail down, immediately people misinterpret it as a dog that's afraid. He's scared, right? But this is not a dog that's scared. The tail is down for a different reason. So good. I mean, your experience in the field clearly shows. And
Thank
yes,
you.
so all of them, what you've mentioned is right. Now, in the first picture, we have a look at the ears, because that's really what is highlighted here. The ears are standing up and erect. Now, for a lot of dogs like German Shepherds and certain other Indies, the ears are always up and erect, right? But you'll see that there's a portion here which pushes the ear forward. It can go forward, it can go backward. So you'll see sometimes even a dog with erect ears can push their ears back, right? The ears are actually a very powerful form of communication in dogs. So in the example of this first dog, the ears are alert, which means he's paying attention to something. There's a great chance there's someone standing on the other side with a piece of treat, and he's learned to be attentive and he's waiting for it. Another important sign to look out for, although I've not mentioned here, is the mouth of the first dog. The mouth is open. Now, if the same dog had a closed mouth and a slightly more intense expression with the eyes, total opposite. But if we were to say ears are erect, it means so and so, without looking at the other body parts, it's going to be a very, like a half judgment, right? And that's worse than no judgment, right? So that's right. So that's a dog that's alert, but alertness doesn't necessarily have to be for the wrong thing. Dogs could be alert even during training time, like this dog. Second one, bang on. You see here, mainly the communication we want to look at is the eyes, right? You see the whites of the eyes are showing quite a lot. If the When the whites of the eyes are showing, we call it a whale eye expression, right? And a whale eye expression is usually given when the dog is kind of really tensed and stressed out, very nervous, very anxious about something. You can even see that the dog is frothing a little bit in the mouth. The mouth is closed little rigidly, but at the same time you can see that salivation. Ears are actually pushed a little bit to the side. So to understand a dog's ears, it can go in many angles. We only think up and down. It can go like this, it can go to the side, it can go down, it can go back. It's an entire joystick by itself, right? So a lot of times when the dog pushes its ears to the side, it also means the dog is trying to ward away people. Example, when a dog is eating some food from a garbage dump and another dog is coming close, the dog will give an expression like that. With the ears will be like this, right? Low and parallel to the ground, like two horns coming to the side. That is already a form of communication. The ears are already telling stay away, right? So if the ears were up here, it'll go like that to the side. So you can see a little bit of that with the ears here. And very anxious dog. Third one, as you said, curious, keenly observing something. All of the dog's body language. Now, the tail being down doesn't necessarily mean the dog is afraid right now. The dog's in a thinking state. The dog's actually trying to stay still. A lot of the energy is going into the eyes because they want to keenly observe whatever it is they're seeing. The ears are also standing up. Although this dog has flappy ears, the ears are standing up and erect for the dog to catch whatever information is there up ahead, and they are very still because they want to gather as much information without necessarily being seen, right? So you'll see this behavior when your dog, let's say you have dogs on the street and there's another dog that's barking in a distance. You'll see them watch alertly like this. Or you'll see this you know when the dog is waiting for something, or they anticipate something coming from one direction and they're waiting patiently. So you'll see this a bunch of times like this. So the big three here that we're going to discuss are the most obvious. They are very easily observable and anyone can kind of tell with these three. So the first three we need to learn to read are the eyes, the ears, and the tail. With the ears, the two most common positions you will see is erect and flattened, right? This is enough for a regular person, but if, as I said, if you go into the intricacies of it, there is so many signals between those two, right? So you have an erect ear usually when the dog is alert. You have flattened ears when the dog slightly in a more submissive state, or sometimes it's pushed back when they get a little more afraid. And then you have the ear carriage to the side when they are in a guarding state, right? With eyes are the most obvious, and it's the same even with human beings. So it's easy for us to understand this. You have soft eyes. You have a happy, relaxed dog. You'll see the eyes very soft. You won't see tension around the pupils. It's going to be very relaxed. You know, um, it's very easy to observe. So in the dog in the first picture, actually the eyes are relatively relaxed. Yeah. Then you have whale eye, which is the dog in the second picture. As we discussed, a lot of whites. So for a dog, when you look at their eyes, you'll probably just see the color of the eyeball, which is the brown or the black or the blue or whatever it is. And the whites are minimally visible occasionally when they look this way, that way. But when you have a dog, unless you've got a pug or a brachycephalic dog like that, but in general, when the whites are showing a lot, the dog is almost like that. That's when they're really, really scared, right? So a lot of whites indicates anxiety in the dog. Now coming to the tail, again, just like the ears, it's not two or three positions. With each position, even the type of movement can make all the difference. So a couple of different tail positions. You have high and stiff all the way up. You'll see this with a dominant dog. You'll see this with a dog that's really alert and trying to approach and show their dominance. They may not necessarily be more dominant, but they feel that that display of dominance is needed in that scenario. Some dogs show a false dominance just to feel safe. Like maybe on an Indian street, when when one person bangs into another person's vehicle, the person who bangs will come out and start screaming, to prevent himself from getting scolded at. This is a common defense mechanism, and dogs do it as well. So sometimes, often, the dog actually behaving like that may not necessarily be aggressive or dominant, but is trying to show that, to actually preserve or protect himself. You have a low and tucked tail. Most obvious, any scared dog, tightly tail is tucked between their legs. They want to make their body as small as possible They want to be invisible, and they want to close their anal area, and they want to close all of those organs because they don't want the smell to come out, right? So they want to be as invisible as possible. They want to make themselves as small as possible. So low and tucked tail. Then you have a relaxed wag. Of course, even the wagging can happen when the dog's tail is high and stiff, like when you see during mating season or during breeding season. You'll see a lot of that high quick wags when one dog, because they're trying to show, they're doing a lot of what we call as posturing, but at the same time they're also trying to show excitement. So the tail wag is a indicator of excitement. Excitement is not to be mistaken as happiness. Most common myth, right? We say wagging tail, excited. No, it's not. Excited, yes. Happy, no, not necessarily. It is arousal, right? When a dog is overexcited, they'll do it. When a dog is aggressive, some dogs that are aggressive will also be wagging their tail, and they'll be straight up and very stiff, right? So wagging tail doesn't necessarily mean the dog is friendly, but a relaxed wag will be a lot more loose. Often you'll find it to be parallel to the ground. It'll be like it'll go left and right. You'll see it with a lot of the retrievers and Labradors. You'll see it with Indies as well. Sometimes the wag is a little lower as well, which indicates, they're friendly, but also they're being submissive. A lot of appeasement behavior. They make their eyes small. They push their ears back because they're just trying to say, "Hey, I'm your friend. Hi, hi." You know, uh, we call it frivolous behavior. They're just trying to be a little frivolous to make sure you don't get annoyed, right? And a lot of indies will do this, especially on first couple of meetings, just to kind of get a read of what kind of a person you are. And many of them continue to do it always because they think it's needed for them to, you know, be accepted in that scenario. So these are the big three. All right. So now, sorry. Yeah. Okay. So as I just discussed in the previous slide, you can understand these big three signals, but if you go with one part, you're going to make a big mistake, right? That's the most common thing that we see. We have so many YouTube videos now and so much of information being put up online, and they put everything up very objectively, and we're in a time where people want that instant gratification. So you have to make short videos, you have to make like 30 seconds, 1 minute, and people want to put information there. So they'll say, "Oh, tail wag, friendly dog." The dog lies down on their back and they're asking for a belly rub. So these are all things that people are being taught to think is normal, right? Until that one fine day when they have a bad experience with their dog and they call me and I have to tell them, no, it's not that, right? So most common myths that we hear: wagging tail means a happy dog. Not necessarily. um, so for example, I guess I just put that photo there. You see the dog on the first picture. Swayambhu, what do you think? Since you're here, what do you think about that first dog wagging its tail so friendlily?
He's no, he's closed his eyes, so I'm not
Yes.
sure if he's happy. He's not
Nice.
happy.
Exactly. So here is an example, and there's a little of lip lick. If you
Yeah.
notice, the tongue comes out once as the person is going to pet him, right? So he's
In my opinion, he's actually not liking what his owner wants him to do, so he's just expressing his disinterest. He's
absolutely,
closed his eyes, but he's at the same time loves his owner, so he wants to take it up as in half-minded.
yeah, yeah. He's displaying that behavior as a form of appeasement.
If
You
I
know,
could skip it, I would.
yeah, that's right. So he actually, a lot of dogs. I don't know. There's something we call learned helplessness, right? They learn the skill because they're confined in spaces with humans, so they feel like, if I offer this behavior, you know I'll be safe, which is quite sad. But of course, you'll see this a lot, and a lot of times it's misunderstood as cute and happy. But yes, the dog does like the owner's attention, by the way. The dog is enjoying it, but the dog's also probably seen the hand. You see, as the hand gets close, he wants to squint his eye a little more. So my observation is the dog's had a negative association with the hand, and he's just learned that if he keeps very quiet and keeps his eyes small and does that, no harm will come his way, and he'll get some pets. Mind you, another dog might make a different interpretation
This
out of this.
looks like Karthik. Sorry
Tell
to
me, tell me.
like dog. If the owner wants to take him for a bath and he's not liking it, but he knows that he has to
Yes,
take a bath, so he's
yes,
trying to buy some favors, but he
yes.
also knows that he's not able to do so. That's why he's
Bang on.
also.
Exactly, exactly. But again, for those of you who are watching, this is not a bad thing. And sometimes it's not anything that you've done. Some dogs just pick up this skill. They realize this muska,
Yeah.
muska works really well, right? Or you may not have taught it to them. They've just thought that it's called frivolous behavior and they just learn to do it more. Um, Next, yawning means a dog is tired. Again, very common myth. I'll add another one here that I've not put on the presentation, licking of the lip, right? They think the dog is hungry when the dog's licking their lips constantly. And when the dog's yawning constantly, oh, he's feeling very sleepy. So, to come to yawning, the reason why dogs yawn is because they want to take in a large volume of air, right? So, lot amount of oxygen. When the dog is stressed, they're often not breathing right. Same holds true for humans. You're not breathing correctly in a rhythmic way. So the body will ask to take in a lot of air at once, and that's really what the yawn is, right? So when a dog is stressed, many times their mouth will be closed. They don't open their mouth and breathe like when they're relaxed, right? So when the mouth is closed, sometimes after a while you'll see one of those yawns like that dog on the right, very commonly seen in a vet clinic. You will see yawn after yawn and it's contagious. Owner will yawn, dog will yawn, and people also yawn when they're anxious, by the way. So this is not only for dogs. A lot of times when you're anxious, doesn't have to be a bad thing. Even when you're, like, let's say waiting for an exam result and you're sitting, in some waiting room, you'll end up yawning a lot, right? So it's not a bad thing. But since dogs communicate entirely through their body language, it's something we should pay attention to. So yawning doesn't necessarily mean the dog is tired. A dog will also yawn when they're a little stressed out, right? And they want to kind of get rid of the stress. So it's not something they do when they get stressed out. I would say it's something they do more to get rid of the excess stress, right? So it's something to observe, not try to stop. uh, Licking of the lip, as I mentioned earlier, you see it in the first picture. It's also something they do, as just it's a calming signal. A dog will do that when they want to kind of calm themselves down and also indicate to someone else that they're a little stressed. Very evident in black colored dogs or dogs with a darker color, because the pink tongue. So dogs are amazing because they will develop body language communication techniques that are apt for their personality, their size, their color, everything. This is with trial and error. So with a black dog, especially if it's on a street, you'll see a lot of lip licks when they want to communicate to another dog because the pink stands out against the black face. Their eyes sometimes just get camouflaged. So they'll go to the point of using more lip licks to communicate that, hey, I'm not comfortable with this much distance when the other dog comes close, right? So very, very intricate. Each dog develops their own arsenal of techniques to use, right? Um, Third, dog on its back wants a belly rub. Not necessarily. Many times, every time I take my dog for a walk, he sees someone and he just lies on his back immediately. He's not asking for a belly rub. He's actually behaving submissive. He's also doing that to kind of say, surrender, hey, you know. And many times it starts with that, and the dog thinks they have to do it for everyone else. So then, with every person they meet, not a bad thing again. Some dogs do it, and then many times, as you're giving them that belly rub, they'll be licking their lips once, twice, thrice. Not that they're uncomfortable, but they just don't want it to go any further. They're like, I've presented my whole body to you. I mean no harm. I'm your friend, and that's it, right? But again, not that you should stop petting a dog that shows their belly, but just try to see the context of it. Some dogs will naturally do it, when they're sitting next to you, they'll roll onto their belly and show you. That may be a dog that's really enjoying it. But when you see a dog that straight up presents itself like this, they want you to check and go away. Because if you see two dogs, a dominant dog comes, the other dog will go under like this and show their belly. The dominant dog will smell, get all the information, and say, Chalo, theek hai, you can go. And that dog will go and the dog will be happy. Sometimes the dog will get happy and start getting zoomies running around the more dominant dog. So when a dog is on their back and asking for a belly rub, Sometimes all they want is a feedback from you saying you're not going to do anything, right? So even if you pet a little and say all good and walk away, then they're fine. Yeah, so that's another thing that people don't know about. Okay, so yeah. Now we've seen the major parts, which is the ears, the eyes, and the tail, and we've also learnt that you can't read one part. You'll have to go with the entire body. Um, so related to that, the ears, eyes, and tail are just three parts, but everything in between also counts, right? So we're just going to look at a couple of body postures which communicate different things, and you'll see when we discuss these postures what role each of those parts have to play. So let's talk about a relaxed, neutral posture. Very much, I guess, like the dog on the left. You see over there, the golden retriever. Common signs of a relaxed dog: mouth open, but not excessively open. You know, when a dog is exhausted and very stressed, with no control at all, they will start panting. The tongue will be out a lot, often accompanied by drooling, uh, sometimes even shivering. But you'll see an open mouth which is not open to the extremity but just open, usually tongue out like that retriever. Soft eyes, body stiffness. If you touch the dog's body, you will not feel so much of tension. It'll be a lot more relaxed. Tail will be relaxed, but doesn't necessarily mean it has to wag. You know, it will sometimes might just be lying down there, but it'll be very relaxed. Other than that, um, yeah, I mean, I guess with the ears, you won't see any tension. Even if the dog has erect ears, it won't be up ahead. It might be up or a little bit back, right? So that's a relaxed, neutral posture. That's what we're really aiming to achieve anytime we work on a dog's behavior. We're not looking to achieve an excited dog is useful when you're training them, when you want motivation, when you want them to do something. But most of what people want with a dog is for them not to do anything. We just want them to relax and not be so excited. So that's a posture for us to look at as a benchmark. Play bow, another a common word. It's become internet lingo. Dogs are doing play bows, play bows. Is it really an invitation to play? Not necessarily. A dog will also do a play bow as a frivolous behavior. Now, a frivolous behavior is basically something they do when they're a little awkward, right? So, example, um, I'm an introverted person, let's say, and I go somewhere to the shop to buy something, and then I meet another old friend or someone colleague who I'm on okay terms with and not very comfortable, and they start talking to me. So what I'll do is, okay, speak to them a little and say, I'm getting late, I need to go now. They'll say, no, 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 2 minutes, let me talk to you more. Are yaar, okay, I can't go now. So next you'll start showing some small signs. You might start getting very fidgety with your hands and legs. You might start scratching your hair. You might start doing this. You might start rubbing your nose. You might start doing this. You get restless, right? This is exactly what I mean by frivolous behavior. So for a dog, when they're feeling in a situation where they just kind of be like, haha, and fake laughter. Humans do fake laughter sometimes just to get out of a situation. I think play bow would be an equivalent to that in some sense. So when the dog's giving a play bow, they're just trying to kind of diffuse the tension in that situation. Dogs do play bows even when they want to invite the other dog to play 100%. So when they play, they'll mimic. So when both dogs give the play bow, they've kind of said, I get you, you get me, we're on the same page, and then they play. But a dog will also do this very often to kind of dissipate tension in an interaction, right? So that's a play bow. Stiff and rigid posture, very obvious. Um, I wanted to get a picture of a stiff and rigid posture, but I don't think that's that. That could mean a lot of other things. Essentially, you'll see very tense, body is tight, the feet are sometimes even, you'll see the paws are like opened up and pressed onto the ground, almost like they want to hold their ground, puffed up chest, you know, eyes are just glaring, very intense eye contact, mouth usually closed at the moment of alertness, not open. Mouth is closed, tail is sometimes very high. A dog like that is coming trying to project something. Usually, when two dogs like this meet, you have a fight. Unless one dog is kind of willing to, you know, de-escalate their body language, right? So often, as I said, people will misunderstand it as dominance, but it could just be the dog trying to communicate something, right, for their own safety. Many dogs that are not actually very dominant in nature will display like this because they just think that's the way for me to not get into conflict. So a lot of what dogs do in amongst themselves and with us is to prevent conflict, right? So aggression, when you say the dog is actually a biting dog or is getting aggressive, you can imagine how much has been overlooked, because they are trying for peace always, every moment, right? So the aggression, if the dogs learn to become aggressive as a first resort to any situation, you can imagine how many signals have been ignored, right? Maybe not intentionally, but and maybe not just by you, but just by situations. Final one, crouched and low to ground. Again, it's obvious. Usually, when the dog is very afraid or trying to be submissive, they want to put their head down. Going ahead, I think in one of the next few slides, we'll talk a little bit about something called clockwork communication. You'll understand why that height of approach is very important when two dogs meet. The head, where they position their head as they approach another dog, can make all the difference in telling that dog who they are, apart from their smell. So, yeah, usually a crouched low to ground posture is about fear or submission. The dog's trying to show that they're afraid and hope that the threat goes away. All right, so next. Okay, one second. Okay, before we go into this, do you have any question, Swayambhu, regarding any of these?
No, I learnt a lot actually about the white of
Yeah.
the. It is interesting. I mean, I had not noticed
Yes.
that. Yeah,
And being at a vet, having spent
yeah,
so much time at a clinic, you'll see a lot of these, and
yeah,
especially this slide is actually, I think, key for a
yeah,
lot of vet visits and in vet clinics.
yeah,
So we will discuss that. Any
yeah,
questions other than that you have?
yeah. Sure. No, I'll make a list.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
At the end, we can.
go with the flow. Yeah.
Super. Cool. So yeah. So now coming to stress signals. So initially, when we speaking about why we need to understand a dog's body language, we spoke about all these things, but one of the most important is to understand when our dog is stressed. When a dog is stressed, you can be sure that very rarely does a dog communicate that through their voice, right? There is a stressed out bark, especially when you leave a dog alone at home. There is a typical kind of bark that a dog will do. A lot of panting and drooling with barks in between. Or you might see it in a shelter when a dog is in confinement, or a dog with separation anxiety, you might see it, right? But most of their communication, especially when the dog is around us, is through their body language. We call these as calming signals. When a dog is stressed, they express their stress to us through something called calming signals. The reason it's called a calming signal is they do it to calm themselves down, and they also do it to attempt and calm the situation or the person around, right? So it has two roles when a dog is doing these calming signals. One, they're trying to calm themselves down, their own body, like in the case of the yawn that we spoke about, dogs trying to take more oxygen in to regulate their breathing and to calm down. The second purpose is also to communicate something to the other person or the other dog involved, to indicate that they are stressed. In nature, when dogs grow up naturally, all learn to pay heed to these signals. They know when the other dog does this, they need to behave a certain way. It is basics, it is ABC. It's the first thing that they learn. But with us, of course, it's not so obvious. So let's go over some of the calming signals. Number one, yawning. As I said, most common when a dog starts to get stressed, you'll see yawns. You'll see this in during Diwali time. You'll see this in car travel for dogs that are not too comfortable. You'll see this at the vet clinic, and you'll also see it when a dog is actually very excited and trying to calm themselves down. For example, um, your dog likes to go to for a walk, right? You've put your shoes on, you've put your clothes on, you're holding the leash in your hand, and you get a phone call. You're talking on that phone call, and they're coming around you, going in circles, jumping. You'll see lip licks, yawn, lip lick, yawn. You'll see shake, which is also we're going to talk about. These are all just for them, like they're just getting too excited, too wound up. So their body is trying to calm themselves down, and they're also trying to tell you, buddy, I'm a little stressed. You've kept me in anticipation. Do something about it, right? So yawning, lip licking, of course, is also very common, and you'll see it very often. Um, Sometimes after I talk about these topics, people get very critical. They start seeing their dog, and every time the dog licks their lip and yawn, they're like, they get very conscious about it. They say, oh no, did I do something wrong? Don't look at it like that. There are stressors through the day. So even now, as people are watching this workshop or here, one of you might be fidgeting your leg, right? One of you might be biting your nails. So you guys are doing your own calming signals, but it's not a bad thing, right? It's a coping mechanism for the body. So even for the dog, you have to observe these definitely, especially if it's repetitive and it's happening in a particular place. But beyond that, you know, you take it easy. Just pay attention, know that it's happened, and leave it at that, right? Because if you're stressing out too much about every single calming signal, then you'll find your dog's going to be giving so many of them through the day. Yeah. um, Panting, again, very obvious. This is one of the higher degree ones. So vet clinic, excessive panting. Car travel, excessive panting. During Diwali, lot of panting. When you see excessive panting, there is definitely something you can do about it, because unlike yawning and lip licking, panting is a little bit more exaggerated, right? So there are a bunch of things you can do to help the dog ease that stress, whether it's taking them away from there, or giving them an activity that helps them calm down, or petting them in a particular manner. Most of it is about knowing what the cause is and trying to address that. Other two, turning away and shaking off. Shaking off, you'll see a lot of shaking, lot of shaking. More, I see it with dogs that are excited, or in anticipation kind of a state, and they've been made to stay in that state for a long time. And yes, like other things, even shaking off can happen when the dog, for many other reasons, right? When the dog actually really wants to shake off some water on them, but you will also observe if a dog's repeatedly shaking, they're trying to get rid of a little bit of that stress energy. Turning away, again, uh, I wouldn't necessarily call it a calming signal, but yes, when the vet is trying to administer something, they'll turn the head. They want the head to be as further away. So it's a common sign. So one of the main things we do sometimes with veterinary handling as a training exercise is we facilitate turning of the head. We reward turning of the head, and then we handle the dog right from the start. So we make turning of the head into something rewarding, right? So that way we are using the calming signal to help the dog. Another example is if a dog has a wound on the front right paw, the dog will keep licking that wound. But what we do is we create a displacement behavior, alternate. So on the ears, we put a ear bud, or sorry, a piece of cotton, or on the back, opposite side leg limb, we put a bandage, put some peanut butter. For dogs that are obsessive at going for their wounds or something, like let's say the dog's just healing from something but they won't stop licking it, giving them an alternate displacement behavior usually helps, right? So displacement behavior, now the dog wants to lick that, you give them something else to do, right? So they need something. It's like fidgeting. Someone is little stressed out sitting in a doctor's waiting room and biting their nails, you give them a stress ball to press. Similarly for dogs, we have a lot of strategies that we use where we use these displacement behaviors to redirect it from an existing one. Now if a dog's stress, I've not mentioned here, but if a dog's stress goes unnoticed for a long period of time, it will become into something called a stereotypic behavior. That means after that the behavior is going to become um, kind of like very repetitive without any reason. uh, in shelters, a dog chasing the tail, a dog shadow chasing the tail. These are all sometimes signs of a dog that's, or yeah, there are a couple of things. There's also um, this thing where the dog will just drink all the water. How much ever you put, they'll keep finishing everything, right? So it can become into a stereotypic behavior, and if stereotypic behavior again goes unnoticed, it can become into an OCD, right? So there are two elements to an OCD. There is an obsession and there's a compulsiveness, right? The obsession is going to make them that intensively keep doing it, repeat, and the compulsion creates the, you can't stop it. Usually when it gets that bad, drug therapy is needed. Again, probably this is another topic altogether. You need to, uh, once it gets that bad, only behavioral therapy is not enough. You'll need to bring in something else as well. But yeah, for if you can pay attention to these smaller signs of stress, it'll never get into that, right? If you can just pay heed to these things, right? So yeah. Now, just as we were talking about stress, the next thing is dog starts to warn when all the smaller signs get missed: stiffness in the body, the restlessness, the tension, all of that. If when it gets missed, that's when a dog will actually start to learn aggression. Right? As I said, the most common form of aggression does not come from dominance or anything else. Most of it comes from fear and anxiety, right? So it's when the dog has been pushed to a corner that they learn to do a fight response. um, if we can pay attention to the body language before the dog gets into a fight response, you'll prevent it altogether. Since we are again at this, when we are working with an aggressive dog that's learned, so we say there are four responses that a dog will give from a survival mode. First is flight. I want to run away. I don't want anything to do with the situation. Second is freeze. I'm going to stay still, because if I stay still, nothing bad will happen to me. Right? I'm going to freeze totally. Third is frivolous behavior, which is where a lot of your body language communication comes in. You might see showing of the teeth, you might see growls, you might see eyes becoming small and squinting, right? And finally, they do fight. If the dog learns that one of the three works before, they are never going to learn to use fight or learn to use aggression. So many times when we work with aggressive dogs, we try to push them down the scale. Aggressive dogs are ones that have learned to use that fight response as the first option. So when they are worried about a situation, they don't think about flight, they don't think about freeze, they don't think about frivolous behavior, they fight. They use aggression because aggression usually works, right? So someone's trying to give them a medicine, they bite their hand, and no medicine is given. So the brain learns, okay, so show aggression. So when you have to work with these dogs, it's very tricky, right? Because you have to push them back down the scale, and these dogs have already learned fighting works. So you have to make them realize fighting doesn't work, and they have to go down the scale. Again, not something you should do without the help of a behaviorist or a good trainer, but just letting you guys know how this works, right? So a lot of the warning system will include growls and snarls. Here you'll also see variations based on the breed. You know, one of the most branded aggressive dog breeds, if you see on YouTube, Rottweiler, right? But funnily, these are the dogs that give you the most warning signs. You know, Rottweiler will give 100 warnings before they actually land a bite, showing of the teeth, growling, whale eye, you name it. They are they are good at giving a lot of warning signs because they are thick-skinned dogs. They have that skill. Whereas, if you take a breed like a Chow Chow, you know, these are breeds that were bred in captivity completely, which means they were actually a delicacy in some places, that they have that bluish purple tongue, which used to be a delicacy, I think, in some countries. So what they used to do is they'll put all the chow chows in a room and just keep them, and then when they want to have their special meat for the royalty, they'll take a chow chow and cook, make meat out of it. So because these dogs didn't have a human touch or emotional touch, they don't have expression much. So you'll see them. Many people have told me, including my own staff when I ran the urban pet, you don't know when the chow chow is gonna bite. He'll be fine in 1 second and he just bites. No warning signs. That's because he's not learned ever as a dog that warning works. He just has to do it, and they've not learned that communication. You know, having been in such a sterile environment their whole life. So even the form of this warning system or how elaborate it is varies from dog to dog. very, very elaborate in dogs that have grown up in the street, because it is natural communication. They learn a very sophisticated warning system, right? So with indies, you have an indie biter, warning system has totally been ignored usually. So indies will not resort to a first bite. They're quite peaceful, you know, contrary to what people think. So finally, yeah, it is a communication tool. So do not punish, especially when the dog is giving you a warning. You don't have to be the alpha dog there and correct them. You need to understand why they're doing it and address that. You know, a lot of people, their ego comes in the way, you know, for these things, and then they end up making the dog really bad. There are certain behaviors that dogs will do out of dominance, but most of the time growls and snarls are not. You know, it starts with defensive. Whether it's a dog doing food aggression, resource guarding, it's all defensive. It's from anxiety. You know, it's not to control their food and try to make sure. It all comes from a fear and anxiety. A confident dog will not find the need to guard, you know, because he knows he'll get his way, right? So some photos there you can see how they express. Many videos you'll see cute videos as well, where the dog has got stuck doing one warning signal and people record it. Some dogs will give warning signals simply. This showing teeth, for example, some dogs just learn to do it naturally even before a warning. It's as a frivolous behavior. Like when they bring some camera close, the dog will close their eyes and show teeth. And when they do that, if they take the camera away, the dog will stop and realize it has worked. Next time again they'll bring the camera. So now you'll have a dog each time you bring the camera close showing teeth. So and they'll name a command. They'll make it into a command called smile and they'll give a treat. So then after that they'll make the dog smile, they'll give it a treat. So in this case, even though the dog is giving frivolous behavior, it's been trained on cue. So soon the dog realizes it's not something I'm doing for stress, but it's something that gets me a reward on the other hand. So that's the warning system. Now everything we have learned till now is based off of this. It's based on dog to dog communication, which is so vast, and this is really the crux of what I love and what I enjoy. Because if we are trying to apply anything with our dogs, or you know, the dogs that we're training, it comes from this. When a dog is communicating with us, they already learn not to use a majority of their signals, because they say these guys can't observe, they can't pay attention to it, it's of no use. But with dogs, each small sign gets a reaction, right? Because their entire communication is based off of this. So you will see everything that we just spoke out to be so much more elaborate. In dogs, the majority of the communication is through body language and, of course, scent. I would actually say scent communication is even more powerful than body language communication, but again, that's a very elaborate topic, and I don't think we'll ever know everything about scent, because the way they perceive the world is really something else, right? So it's a majority of the communication. Um, Generally, when you see interactions between dogs, whether you go to a dog park or you see street dogs, or your dog is meeting another friend's dog, you will see these three types. I've tried to make this as simple as possible for the regular viewer. You have a playful interaction, body language loose, and exaggerated movements. You know, you'll see the dog to be a little more animated, more play bows, which means the dog is usually trying their best to get into a playful, non-conflicting relationship with the other dog, right? The other dog may reciprocate, may be calm, wag their tail through it, right? So you that's your playful interaction. Then you have nervous interactions, when either one of the dog is trying to avoid. So many times they say to socialize your dog, just take them to Cubbon Park or take them to a dog park and leave them together, they'll be fine. Doesn't work for all dogs. As a matter of fact, for a lot of dogs, it can damage them quite bad, especially based on the scenario, right? So even in socialization, you have to be extra careful about the kind of interaction. So let's say you have your dog playing with another dog, and your dog or the other person's dog is trying to avoid the dog a lot, having stiff movements, sometimes even the tail is seeming a little stiff. You should intervene there and break it, because otherwise that dog can slowly learn to use some form of aggression to keep your dog away, or your dog might end up doing the same, right? And you don't want your dog also to learn to be a bully. In nature, a lot of these things get ironed out because the dog have access to a vast space, right? So they move away, communication is fine. But when we're having a pet dog, we need to take extra care that, um, our dogs are not getting nervous in interactions, and neither are the other person's dog. So even if you feel your dog is being a little pushy on other person's dog, it's our role to kind of regulate that, especially when it comes to pet dogs. Third, assertive. Some dogs are just very dominant, so they approach very strong. Now, if the other dog is of the same gender, and even if the other dog may not be dominant, if your dog is going like this in first instance, that dog might perceive it as a threat based on their past experiences, right? So sometimes you will see, like for example, again, I didn't get the right picture, but if you see the photo on the bottom left and the one right in between, you can see the dogs are approaching with a very confident stance, and the other dogs are taking a position under them, right? So a lot of times as they approach itself, you will get to know the dynamic of the interaction. um, Based on this, there's something called clock face communication that we're going to talk about. um, Clock, you see the clock, you have 12 o'clock, you have 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, you have a clock face. Now if you imagine the dog's face to be like a clock, right, there are certain angles from which the other dog can approach. To go into the depth of it, last time on the interactive, we spoke about different social characters that we see in dogs, right? We have some that are decision makers, some that are protectors. Each of those roles have certain privileges, right? So, based on the role or based on what you are projecting, you will expect the other dogs to approach you from a certain angle. That's your way of maintaining your uh, position. Uh, that's the best way to put it. So every dog is trying to maintain their position. So especially if you see dogs that are already friends, a pack of dogs like my dogs, we have four of them who actually are always together. Those four have very clear clock face communication. They will approach each other from specific angles, and they'll do this each time. Let's say they've gone out somewhere, they've been separate, and then they come and meet, and then they check in. It's like me telling, hi, my name is this, I'm so and so, I'm so and so, this is my biodata. The other person also says it. Okay, check in. Fine, I get it, I get you. But many times, what happens when two new stranger dogs meet? That's when there's a lot of tension. So one of them is coming and giving, I'm so and so. The other one is giving, I'm also so and so. Now that becomes a fight. If one came and put their head up like this, head up, almost looming over, and the other one approached from under, licking, 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 showing their tongue, and then sometimes rolling on the back, submissive stance, it'll be taken in a certain way, you know. Similarly, some dogs have the privilege of approaching from the side, they'll be allowed. So as it goes higher, 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 higher on the head to the point where you have the neck, which is where the mother will use to hold the puppies, as it goes to the top, you need to be someone mm, who is seen with a little bit of respect. I think that's the best way to put it, right? So only a dog that has been accepted as someone who is respectful in that pack will have the privilege of putting their head over. And it also could be seasonal. So for example, there'll be a very dominant female dog, but during mating time she's allowing, because when the dog is trying to do courtship and they're trying to mate, that's one of the gestures they do. They'll put their head on top of the this area, posture, and then slowly start and mount. She will not allow that otherwise, but because it's needed for that time, they'll allow, right? So it's not to be seen as, oh, this is the dominant dog. The clever dogs know how to switch also. Sometimes they'll go from down, right? The decision makers will, based on situations with their members of the pack, they have the absolute privilege. But let's say there's another dog who they feel is very strong, or have uh, might be something that they want to bring into the pack. They might approach them with more muska, so that's just a gist of clock face communication. Not going to go into the specifics of it because it will confuse people, but the angle of approach, is it a 6 o'clock angle? Is it a 4 o'clock angle? Is it a 2 o'clock angle? Based on that, you can say a lot about what the dog is going to be okay with, right? And even you'll see many dogs don't like to let the other dog smell their back instantly. They'll keep turning. So if one dog is being too pushy to smell the back without letting this dog first, that can become into a fight. Especially the dogs that are a little anxious, don't want to give their information fast. They want to know first who you are, right? And if the other dog is not giving them the smell and constantly trying, that can lead to a conflict, or may not. Sometimes if they gauge that the other dog is big and powerful and it makes more sense for them to just show their smell, they'll just show it. So it's all situation based, it's based on personalities, it's based on you know uh, what the dog has learned to do, their experiences, and so many other things. So that is your clock face communication. Okay, so we have two videos here. We're just going to try and see if it plays here. Okay, just give me a second. I'm going to play this video.
Georgia's not doing what we call active submission by laying on the ground, rolling over. She's just standing there and accepting JoJo's dominant postures, okay? You notice that Georgia lowers her head and JoJo moves to it, and again, being very dominant, kind of sticking her nose in her and at the side of her head. Georgia reaches her head, pulls her head back up. Again, JoJo's tail wagging, all dominance, all right? So she's going to start messing with her ear here with her nose. That's a submissive type behavior. Notice Georgia's little tail nub back there wagging a little bit. Then JoJo, as Georgia's messing with her ear, JoJo starts staring at her again. Georgia's looking away, showing submission. Then Georgia tries to move away, and notice what JoJo does. She pulls right around, communicates to her, do not move, right? And puts her head right over her shoulder. All signs of high levels of dominance.
Okay, that's a really good video, nicely shot. Anything you saw in specific there based on what we spoke?
Yeah, this is pretty common, Karthik.
Yes.
I've noticed that sometimes they turn away, and
Yes,
pretty common. If they're not okay,
that's right.
yeah.
The main thing to see is this clock face communication that we just spoke about.
Mhm.
The dog that's trying to show their dominance here is the little one. The other one is much taller. So in a situation like this dog is actually doing it very clearly, and the way she communicates to the other one and kind of shows. You see how her body stiffens up the moment the other dog is approaching from this angle. Actually, believe it or not, the bigger dog is trying to be polite, but because of his size, his angle of approach is still high. Even though he's trying to come, he's coming to the ear. She's not okay with that, so she stiffens up. And when he's being a little more pushy, she gives a little correction. But this is a clear correction, which is different from a dog that's afraid. This is a dog that's doing it very clearly. So she wants to control his movement, direction, and speed. So she's kind of almost telling him, no, be here, be like this. And they do that to kind of establish themselves, to the other dog. So here she's communicating very clearly to the bigger dog that she's in charge, right? So nice, very elaborate communication. So here you can see the clock face communication, but it's failing. So they have to use other parts, so that's nice. I will play the other one as well. The other one.
Are you missing common stress signals? Here's a 7-second test for you. Watch closely, it goes by really fast. How many stress signals can you spot right now? Alright, here are the answers. Panting, pulled back corners of mouth, ears back, drooling, yawning, lip licking, and squinty eyes. Learn to read them, they're so important.
So here you can see that it's very subtle, the communication. We'll very often see dogs like this, at a vet clinic or places, and we think the dog is very calm, but the dog's actually going through stress. You know, this video perfectly describes the expression. If you see the dog, how the mouth has been pulled back totally when it's panting, squinting, you'll see little drooling. So there is some help we can do for a dog like this, by understanding that they're stressed, even if it's something as simple as taking them for a walk away from whatever is stressing them, bringing them, or some kind of thing can be done, but it's important to observe. This is a example of subtle communication of stress. It doesn't have to be very big and obvious for us to see, like in the case of the aggression. So that is this. Yeah. Okay. So before we just close this, yeah, couple of main points just to remember. Body language is the key to build a strong relationship with your dog. So you need to be able to understand it, put together whatever theory you've learned in this session along with your experiences, and constantly read between the lines. Right. Um, First thing to keep in mind is the big three. Those are the most obvious, especially when you don't have time to observe a dog totally. You look out for the three. You teach people to look out for the three, which is the ears, the eyes, and the tail, and understand altogether what they're trying to see. Even when you look at these three, don't look at only one. You look at all three together and try to go with your gut feeling or instinct, because usually that will end up being right. Then recognizing stress signals, we also learned about the different kind of calming signals that dogs give, from yawning, lip licking, shaking, turning away, excessive panting. So we pay attention to that, and so that we can address it and do something about it, and we can understand what may be stressing them out. And finally, we learned about dog to dog communication, which is essential for socialization. We have so many people getting a puppy and getting socialization wrong, because you hear information which says your dog should meet 100 other dogs, 100 other people. Your dog can meet all the people and dogs, but if the quality of interaction was not great, they will end up learning the wrong habits from it. Many puppies, when they're as small as 3 months, they start taking them to the dog park. And by 7, 8 months, the same dog, they say, my dog was friendly with all other dogs, but once he turned a year old, he started becoming aggressive. Right? It's just about the dog learns that obsessive interaction, and when they get older, they continue to do the same. Right? And that becomes into a problem. So even for dog to dog socialization, it's important that you uh, watch their body language and you observe. Right? And people say they're dogs, you leave them together, they'll figure it out. It's true if you're going to permanently leave them together, but you're going to leave them together for an hour and take them back home, and they're again going to meet the other dogs for an hour the next week. You have to be a part of it. You can't let your dog figure it out for themselves, because they may just learn the wrong kind of coping mechanism. Yeah. So those are the key takeaways. And finally, to finish this workshop, a very famous saying which I've used time and time again, and it's that dogs do speak, it's only to those who know how to listen. So rather than trying to teach the dog and train the dog, if we spent a lot more time in trying to listen to them and understand what they're saying, then we'd make good progress in building that dream relationship that we want with our dogs. Yeah. So with that, we come to a close. We will open it up for questions. Swayambhu, you're the only one here. Anything you want to know, or anything you want to discuss about specifically? You're on mute.
Couple of things I could relate. The belly rub, especially now, the Gundama's rival Geetama.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So when she is trying to, maybe show off with Gundama or something, if I try to raise my voice, she immediately shows her belly. And I
Ah,
always notice this. She immediately shows her
onto
belly.
a belly.
Yeah. So that one thing I could notice, and then I rub it off. Maybe she's. I should take this forward. Now she had some maggot wound. She's just back from the vet.
Mm-hmm.
I'll keep observing this part.
Nice.
And the first one, the bath one, I could relate it to Kalyani itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So during winter, deep winter, that is Christmas week and all, if I try to ask her for a
For a
bath,
bath.
yeah, she would shiver. She would pretend to shiver. I mean, she's
Ah,
expressing, she's not shivering.
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, she would shiver, and she would, it's like she's actually telling me, are you out of your mind? It's so cold. I could read it on her face. Like,
Yeah.
so just for fun, I also used to, take the leash, and she
Let's
could
go
make
for a
out.
bath. Ah.
If I'm in jeans, it's for walks. If it's I'm in shorts, it's for bath. Yes, she could make out that part. And if I'm in shorts and taking a leash,
She knows you're
she
going to
would,
take her.
yeah, she would just tell that, last week of December is like she hates bath. And just to get that expression, I used to just love that expression. It's like, are you out of your mind? Look at the weather.
Yeah, they communicate so nicely.
Of course, I
Even,
didn't give a bath. That
yeah,
was
yeah.
just for my
For the,
happiness.
yeah,
Yeah.
actually, that is also great because uh, one of the things when you're raising a puppy, if you teach them when they're young that you're listening to them, they are more likely to look to you for input. A
Yeah.
lot of people they damage the relationship with their dogs because the dogs all their signals get ignored and they say
Yeah.
leave it, it's no point. They come to a conclusion that it's not,
Oh, yeah.
especially, yeah, especially dogs of indies that are having, the reason why a lot of people find it difficult to train indies is because they're very
Mm.
communicative. We spoke about decision making traits, no, they're very
Yeah.
strong in indies, so they're always trying to give signals to us,
Mm.
and they try to see whether you're going to listen or not. If you're not going to be listening to their signals, then the dog will say, chalo, this is not going to work for me, so I'll stop giving you so many signals.
Okay.
And even though sometimes that will be interpreted as some people will say, oh, the dog is very quiet and very calm and
Mm.
not doing anything, you have missed out an opportunity to be able to build a relationship with their dog.
Yeah.
If many indies after a point you can't use food to train them
Mm.
because they will lose their interest and they don't want to eat food the way like a golden retriever, like
Yeah.
give me a big chunk or what, and now I don't want to eat. They're very fussy, and you cannot use play also so much for many indies unless from a young age they've been conditioned to playing. So now how will you motivate the dog, how will you get your message across to the dog? It comes down to having that uh, feedback loop. So
Yeah.
for example, I have a little indie, that Tulsi. From the young
Mm.
age I've done many things that was earlier told to me as a trainer not to do, which is if the dog is whining or making sound or communicating, don't pay attention to it because it will grow. But with her, I gave attention to everything. But the
Okay.
kind of attention I gave varied. For every single thing, I gave a feedback. I would do something. So, what has happened is I have at least maintained her desire to want to communicate with me. And this is very fragile for a lot of indies. Like, once they figure out this person is not going to, they'll stop, right? And this has allowed me to have a dog that will even be off leash. Not many people can have a pet indie off leash. Very rare, especially when you go for a trek or anywhere. People are usually very afraid that the dog will run off. You know, if the dog is going to stay with you, in India especially, most of the time, you need to be a part. So if the dog knows that you communicate, they can get feedback from you, you take feedback from them, then they're going to see you as a pack all the more, right? So very important skill we have to teach, especially for pet parents who are having, indies and some more intelligent, instinctive dogs. With the retrievers and Labradors and even German Shepherds, it doesn't matter so much, right? So so that's what it is. So this workshop is uh, I think we've only touched on less than 10% of what's there to share, right? But I think it's a great start, especially for someone who had absolutely no idea about dog body language. This is a good start just to understand where this comes from. Yeah, so I think with that, we will close today's workshop. I hope all of you were able to gather something from this. And yeah, we organize these workshops on a regular basis. So if you have a specific topic that you'd like us to cover, then please do mail us, and you can WhatsApp us, and we will do that. Yeah. So thank you so much for everyone who's watching. Thanks, Swayambhu. I think she had an issue with her internet connection. We will see all of you again soon with another workshop. Yeah. Until then, make sure you read your dog's body language. Make sure you read between the lines, and you become the listener that your dog deserves. Yeah. All right. See you then. Bye.